Yes, sometimes former presidents do go to jail. France's former leader, Nicolas Sarkozy, sentenced to 5 years for his part in the illegal financing of his 2007 campaign by Muammar Gaddafi's Libya. He'll do time even while he appeals. That's on top of his electronic bracelet that he wore in a separate case of eavesdropping on magistrates. I'm innocent, insists the conservative leader. Sarkozy, who still casts a long shadow over French politics, regularly advises the current president, Emmanuel Macron, despite those 4 criminal cases against the founder of the Les Républicains party, whose current leader, Bruno Retailleau, also serves as Macron's interior minister. A verdict that's a triumph of a judiciary branch of government that's independent of political pressures or overreach, as claimed by far-right leader Marine Le Pen, who's got legal issues of her own. We'll look at the facts and ask about the masterminds and bagmen of the Libyan corruption trial, one that harks back to a time when Muammar Gaddafi was back in the good graces of the international community before Sarkozy himself led the charge to have the UN and NATO intervene and stop Gaddafi from quashing the Arab Spring rebellion out of Benghazi. How does Thursday's verdict sit here and there? Today in the France 24 debate, we're talking about jail time for Nicolas Sarkozy. With us, just back from Paris Central Courts, where she covered the verdict, France 24's Claire Pacalin.
Hello.
Thanks for being with us.
You're welcome.
Columnist and consultant Philippe Moreau-Chevrolet, professor of political communications.
Hello, François.
The French Political Science Institute, Sciences Po. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
He lost his father in the 1989 downing of a French passenger jet by Libya. Guillaume Denoy de Saint-Marc is with us today, the president of the Association of Victims from that. Thanks for joining us here.
Good evening.
Yeah. And you too were today at the courthouse. From Istanbul, Anas El Gamadi, director of the Tripoli-based Sadek Institute think tank. Good to see you.
Thanks for having me back, Francois.
On the go, you can always listen to the show wherever podcasts are streamed. I will sleep in jail, but with my head held high. Nicolas Sarkozy, pugnacious as always. After a harsher verdict than predicted, Sarkozy, who's summoned October 13th for what could be a sentencing date. Emily Boyle has more.
For the first time in the history of the French Republic, a former president has been handed a prison sentence. Nicolas Sarkozy was found guilty by a Paris court of criminally conspiring with Libya over illegal campaign financing. He has been sentenced to 5 years in prison.
What happened today in this room is of extreme gravity. I am innocent. This injustice is scandalous. I will not apologize for something I have not done. Of course, I am going to appeal. I will probably have to appear in handcuffs in the Court of Appeals. Those who hate me that much think they have humiliated me. But what they have humiliated today is France.
As they left the court building, Sarkozy's wife, Carla Bruni Sarkozy, grabbed the red bonnet off of Mediapart's microphone. The scandal was first reported by the left-wing media outlet in 2011. Sarkozy was found guilty of criminal conspiracy. According to the judgment, Nicolas Sarkozy allowed his close associates and political supporters, over whom he had authority and who acted on his behalf, to approach the Libyan authorities in order to obtain or attempt to obtain financial support in Libya, with a view to securing funding for the 2007 campaign. The judge acquitted Sarkozy of all other charges, including corruption. She said there was no proof that Sarkozy made such a deal with Gaddafi, nor that money that was sent from Libya reached Sarkozy's campaign coffers. Head Judge Nathalie Gavarino handed down a special form of sentence that means the former president will have to serve a prison term even if he appeals. The judge also ordered Sarkozy to pay a €100,000 fine.
So Claire Pacalin, judging from that report, quite the electric atmosphere at Paris Central Courts.
Certainly, when we were in the courtroom, there was an audible gasp from everyone in there when we heard the judge read out the mandat de dépôt. So that is basically the sentence, the judgment's going into immediate effect. Even though Sarkozy is appealing, they go into immediate effect. Then she said that that will be deferred. So as we saw there, October 13th, Sarkozy will be summoned by a judge, and the judge will say when Sarkozy's prison sentence will begin. So he will go behind bars. I don't think anyone's expecting him to spend 5 years behind bars. He's 70 now. That will be taken into account. And he will, once he's behind bars, be able to request to see a judge again to see if he could get his sentence somehow amended. But certainly, you were there as well. Yeah. That gasp when everyone found out that this was going to be applied immediately and not pending an appeal. No, immediately, 5 years in prison.
And when we saw the two policemen starting to come, and then she said, no, but not immediately. So they went backwards.
Yeah, because the police would go so that because they would usually be taken out of the courtroom and straight to prison. So the policemen came because they heard mandat de dépôt, and then they,
And it was very, very impressive, very impressive. And it was a turning point at that time. But and I was completely surprised myself that it was immediate sentence. I thought that his status would protect him, and that the person who has a lot of power may evade having a complete sentence. And I had the feeling that at last this was a real sentence, and compared to what we knew during 3 months of trial, it was a relief to see that justice was still justice.
Just legal shorthand here. Sarkozy cleared on 3 charges, convicted on 1. Effectively, we do not have enough evidence to prove that you actually had the Libyan money in your bank account, but we know you were complicit in the scheme.
Certainly, this idea of Sarkozy so guilty of having been part of a criminal conspiracy with the view to preparing corruption, having been aware that his collaborators, his supporters were going out to Libya and trying to find ways to get funding. But the judge felt that the evidence was not there to show that Gaddafi's money was actually in Sarkozy's electoral financing bank accounts. That link was not shown. And so when the reading lasted for a good more than 3 hours. And at the beginning, when we heard that Sarkozy had been cleared of 3 of the 4 charges against him, so cleared of embezzlement of public money, Libyan public money, cleared of illegal campaign financing, cleared of passive corruption, most people were beginning to think, oh, okay, he's kind of getting almost let off the hook, perhaps. And then the sentence came down about an hour or so later, and no, he was certainly not let off the hook.
We heard in that clip of the former French president, Philippe Moreau-Chevrolet, Nicolas Sarkozy talking, singling out those who hate France. And you then saw this incident with his wife, Carla Bruni, the former model and now singer, singling out the French investigative news site Mediapart, which broke the case here in this country, snatching that mic flag out of the outlet that back in 2012, when Sarkozy was still president, first started reporting on
this Mediapart has been originated a lot of stories on Nicolas Sarkozy's involvement in Libya. That's why she's angry at the media. I would say don't shoot the messenger. I mean, it's not the Mediapart has only done its job as a media to expose what happened in Libya with Sarkozy, and the fact that he has been sentenced for 5 years in prison is unprecedented. I think he's angry because he's the first president ever to go to jail. We never had that. We had president convicted before, but we didn't have president in jail with handcuffs. And you could see that the very fact that he mentions this picture of him with the handcuffs, you can see that what is preoccupying him most of all is that it will be his legacy in history. There will be pictures of him with the handcuffs, pictures of him entering the jailhouse, exiting it maybe one day. So it's like, for him, it's like everything would be ruined in his reputation in the history books. That will be what he's leaving behind him. So that's why it's preoccupying him.
Anas El-Khamadi, you heard the surprise of our 2 panelists here on set who were in the courtroom. Were you also surprised when you saw your news alerts?
I mean, I was surprised when I heard of the response by Sarkozy, and also kind of not surprised. I mean, this is a man whose moral compass just points towards power and profit. I mean, he took blood money from a dictator and tried to rebrand the dictator whilst he was in power, whilst he was murdering his own people, whilst he was selling him equipment to spy on his own people that would be used to kill his own people. And then he went into a revolution as a revenue stream. He tried to treat Libya like an ATM. And today, when we find out the news, he's talking like he's the victim. He's a sociopath. I mean, he's turned human suffering into a story about himself, and that's going to be his legacy. You know, his legacy is a demonstration of moral hypocrisy of the worst kind, moral bankruptcy of the lowest kind. And you know, when I say to myself, I'm getting surprised, we're living in a world today where the region is not surprised by anything. We're watching a genocide happening in Palestine, 60,000 people that have been killed. The region isn't exactly showing its shock and awe about what's happening. It's kind of confirmation. And the real legacy here is going to be that Gaddafi's speeches, Saif al-Islam, his son's speeches during the revolution, during a point where Libyans and many people in the region were dreaming of a better future, they're going to realize that Gaddafi is going to have the final word when he's in the grave, when he's turning around and showing that he's not the worst kind of dictator, he's not the worst kind of leader that the world has seen. He's just a mirror of those that he dealt with. He only took the shots that he could take.
Yeah, your thoughts on this, Guillaume Denoy de Saint-Marc? And does the punishment fit the crime?
You know, I'm concerned directly on the what Sarkozy and his friends, the deal about Abdallah Senussi, the corruption, the side of the money. I'm involved as a French, but I'm not concerned directly. But seeing that a future president was letting the Libyans think that something would be done about the case of Abdallah Senussi.
Yeah, let's just explain.
Horrible.
Let's just explain for our viewers.
Yeah.
Part of the bargain alleged to have been that Sarkozy's offer of Libyan financing in exchange for the lifting of an international arrest warrant was against Abdallah Senussi, Gaddafi's brother-in-law and head of foreign intelligence. He's believed to have been the mastermind of the 1986 West Berlin discotheque bombing, and who was also convicted in absentia in France over the 1989 downing over the Sahara of the plane that carried 170, the UTA airliner, including your father.
Yeah, and also the Lockerbie flight. So that's many crimes are related to Abdallah Senussi. But as I'm concerned by the terrorist attack against the plane in which my father was, 170 persons, 19 nationalities, a lot of young persons, a lot of babies. And seeing that Sarkozy and his team were about to say, we're going to find a way to lift the sanctions against Senussi is just horrible for us. He wanted to be the French president, and he became the French president, and he was not preventing the law, not protecting the law, and you know, it's really something that it's insupportable,
Unbearable.
But we thought that maybe he would get through, and I'm so happy that I'm sad in the same time, because a president should not have done that. But I'm so happy that justice went through, and he has been convicted for this and the other crimes.
Anas El Gamadi, whatever became of Abdallah Senussi?
Abdallah Senussi is, as we speak, rotting in a jail cell in Tripoli, and still hasn't answered for his crimes, for the flight, the 772 flight, the Lockerbie flight, and the crimes that were done to the Libyan people. But you know, I think what's interesting is we have to cut through this, and you know, there are victims that are going to be on both sides of this, and my heart goes out to the gentleman that's in the studio with you for his loss, for his father's loss. My heart goes out to those that were lost in the Lockerbie flight in the mid-1980s, but also Libyans that died in Abu Salim prison in 1996, 1,200 people that were killed in cold blood in a single day, those that have have been killed in so many more events. You could list an encyclopedia of all of these different injustices that were done to people. But the real question for me is that when we look back at what Abdullah Sanusi did in 2009, history is going to remember this, because when people talk about the international rules-based order, you're going to have to remember that meeting. That meeting was not just that rules are there, that rules have a price tag, and that justice has a negotiable rate, that you can negotiate your way through. And the way that now we're looking at the world and collapse around us, the war in Ukraine and all these forever wars that are happening in the region, and all these dictators that are thinking, can I make it another day? The kind of Putins of tomorrow, could I make it one more day? Well, these are the kind of examples where we learn that you can. And Abdullah Sanusi, again, is someone that, he hasn't been able to answer for his crimes, neither did Gaddafi. Gaddafi's 6 foot under the ground, but Abdullah Sanusi is still there. And I think it is one of the reasons why he's not been on public trial, one of the reasons why he doesn't speak, is because they're going to expose so many people like this trial today with Sarkozy. And I think that was the key question. You asked the question whether or not today that justice has been served, whether or not we're really getting to the crux of this. All of the ways in which they designed this funneling of money was done to bypass what would later be tried to be proven in court. I mean, it's plausible deniability at its finest, and that was what Gaddafi had mastered over 20 years, 30 years during international sanctions, when he was amassing billions of dollars of oil wealth in Libya and thinking, how do I get my money out there? How do I spend it? How do I bolster my regime? This was just the tip of the iceberg, and that's why it's so hard to prove. People like Jury and people like Taqiyuddin dying 48 hours before the court case. Really? I mean, Shukri Ghanem, the former Prime Minister of Libya, the former head of the National Oil Corporation, also his diaries have handwritten notes about the payments that were done. Shukri Ghanem died on the River Danube in Vienna in 2012.
All right,
mysteriously dying in the one part of the River Danube where you could fall in of a heart attack. It's mind-blowing, because to me it's not plausible deniability, it's implausible deniability. And you can't prove it in court. It's unfortunate.
Let's show our viewers what you just alluded to. 48 hours before the verdict, the death of 75-year-old Franco-Lebanese businessman Ziad Taqiyuddin. In 2016, he told Mediapart that he delivered suitcases filled with cash from Tripoli to the French Interior Minister under Sarkozy, among those who were convicted today. He later retracted the charges, again, dropped posthumously just in the last 48 hours. This in a case that goes way back to 2005. Emily Boyle has more.
The accusations trace their roots to 2011, when a Libyan news agency and late Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi himself said the Libyan state had secretly funneled millions of euros into Nicolas Sarkozy's successful 2007 presidential run. Prosecutors alleged that Sarkozy knowingly benefited from what they described as a corruption pact with Gaddafi's government. In exchange for millions in illegal financing, Sarkozy was said to have supported Libya's public rehabilitation on the international stage. One example, Gaddafi's 5-day visit to Paris in 2007, followed by the signature of multiple contracts. Alongside Sarkozy, 2 suspected intermediaries were also at the heart of the case: entrepreneur Alexandre Giori and French-Lebanese national Ziad Taqiyuddin, who passed away a few days ago. Taqiyuddin had told investigators he transported 3 suitcases filled with 5 million euros worth of cash between Libya and Paris.
Yes, Gaddafi paid Sarkozy. Did he pay for his campaign? Did he pay for something else? It is not my problem.
Sarkozy, who was elected in 2007 but lost his bid for re-election in 2012, has denied all wrongdoing. The former president says the case against him was a vengeful plot, a conspiracy started by the Gaddafi clan as revenge for France's role in bringing down his government in 2011.
He denies this accusation. It's absurd. We don't even know the amount of this alleged funding. According to those interviewed, we have 5.6, 50 million, 400 million. We don't even know what currency it is.
Thursday's decision is not the final act in Sarkozy's legal woes, as multiple appeals are already pending in other cases, including a case involving Sarkozy's wife, Carla Bruni Sarkozy, over alleged witness tampering.
Anas El Gamadi, we deal in facts, not conspiracies. Are you suggesting that the death of Ziad Taqeddine is anything other than an accident?
If we would have said this 14 years ago when I was sitting in your studio that this was even possible, what would you have said to me, Francois? We wouldn't believe anyone saying this. We would have laughed at them and we would have had tears in our eyes from the laughter. But 14 years later, stranger things have happened than people dying mysteriously on a riverbank in Vienna, people dying mysteriously 48 hours before it. I'm not going to deal in conspiracies either, because there is a problem with all of this. The problem that I have is that if we don't try to deal with the core issues here, which is that we know that they've tampered with the case, that's almost inevitable now. There are Libyans that are sitting in jail cells like Abdullah Sanusi that aren't coming out. I don't believe in coincidences when there's too many of them. They're just too convenient for me. So I don't want to go too much further than that. But, you know, people like Jury got 6 years because he's a bagman. Taqeddine retracts his statement. You know, and it's just, there's too many problems with it. Do you not see my point here? You have to ask yourself what kind of pressure has been applied, who else is applying it, and why. What is the real story here? Is the real story that French democracy has become auctioned, and that we want to limit the damage and just put it in the face of Sarkozy, or give it to the bagman like Jury who got 6 years? It's a travesty. I don't believe that justice was served, personally.
Guillaume Denoy de Saint-Marc?
For me, Taqeddine had no more credibility anyway. So his death doesn't change anything, which is not the case of what happened in Vienna. This is something completely different. I could agree for Vienna, but not for Taqeddine. Taqeddine had no more credibility for the French justice. And in the sentence, it was really said that they didn't take anything from Taqeddine, because it was one day yes, one day no. A lot of things, many things were wrong. Some may be true.
Yeah, there was evidence, Claire Paquin, there was evidence that was thrown out as not being verifiable or not being credible, some of the evidence that was introduced in this case.
What was interesting was this letter, which was published by Mediapart, so one of France's very much leading investigative news website. Mediapart published this letter that Mediapart said had been from a member of the Libyan regime, and it was saying in black and white that money had gone from the regime to Sarkozy's coffers. Now, during the trial, there were times when we understood it had been verified, but today the judge said that probably it was a fake. But that still didn't stop her handing down the judgment and a serious sentence for Sarkozy. But today, what we heard from the judge was it was probably a fake. Now, of course, Mediapart, who were there, the journalists were in the room, I saw them, they would very much disagree with that. And of course, we saw that picture of Carla Bruni as she was leaving the courthouse, grabbing that part of the
mic flag.
Exactly, the media part, red part of the microphone, looking at it and tossing it on the floor. So certainly Mediapart and Sarkozy are sworn enemies, I think.
Do you, Philippe Montchevalet, agree that Anas El Gamadi, there's been too much tampering, or was justice served and was justice blind?
They spent years working on this file. They did try to convict him, obviously, otherwise he wouldn't have gotten a 5-year sentence. And they didn't find the legal way to do it, because there was not enough evidence. We are a democracy with a strong justice system. That's why we are here tonight. That's the first time a French president ever goes to jail. This is an historical moment.
Under the Fifth Republic.
If the justice hadn't been served, we wouldn't be there. He's going to jail. We don't have many countries in the world where a former president would go to jail. Brazil is one fine democracy with a president going to jail. We have a president going to jail. There is another democracy, François, that you may know, with a president convicted of 34 motives. And he's still been elected president, and he didn't go to jail. Meaning Donald Trump is still alive and kicking, and we can be proud of that. And you have to take into account that this is a historical moment, and the French population didn't believe, as you mentioned, they didn't believe that this guy could go in jail ever. We always believed that he would have an electronic tag on his ankle, and that was it, and he would still live in the middle of Paris, in his nice house. He's going to jail. This is unprecedented, and I think there will be an appeal. Maybe the state will go in.
But will it be like you mentioned the United States? Will it be like the U.S., where those who like Sarkozy will say this is a vendetta, and those who don't will say this justice?
Obviously, that's the case. And each time there is a politician in jail, his supporters are in disbelief. We are very tolerant as a society towards corruption. That has been studied by sociologists. Don't smile, François. That's the same thing in the US. I resent that smile. And we are tolerant towards corruption as a society. So we can vote again for a president that has been convicted. But this one is going to jail. That's his legacy. That's his final moments.
He's going to jail, but he's not in jail yet. And there was no delayed sentencing for the bagman in this case, or one of them, Franco-Algerian middleman Alexandre Djouri. He was ordered to serve 6 years for funneling 500,000 euros from the Libyans to Sarkozy's former chief of staff and interior minister, Claude Guéant. And there, the police came in and took him away, just like you said, Guillaume de Noël.
They came behind him, ready for the end of the sentence. Then he would go to jail.
So is he spending the night in prison?
Yes.
Because,
this night
because he's not the former president? And if he had been, he would have had a few days to get his affairs in order?
You should ask the court why there's a difference.
Well, I think the judge did say that for Nicolas Sarkozy, he had shown willing, he had come to the courtroom, and he wasn't seen as a flight risk, whereas potentially Djouri could be. There's been a red notice for him in the past. Exactly, whereas Sarkozy said it himself, everyone knows where I live, so postponing the date. That was the justification in any case, that it's unlikely that Sarkozy is going to be able to slip out the country. Everyone knows his face. And so that was why the judge anyway felt that this could be deferred until later in October.
And maybe there's something else. The picture, already the idea that having a French president going into jail is something, but seeing him arrested after the trial would be even more dramatic.
We had that with Dominique Strauss-Kahn, and it was a national trauma.
So I think it was intelligent not to do it now, just to wait a few days. But he's going to go to jail, and maybe that's why. I don't know if it's the reason why, but I found it rather clever not to have made it immediate today.
All right, among the other reactions, that of Marine Le Pen, who's currently appealing her barring from running for president in 2027 after the National Rally leader's conviction of embezzlement of EU Parliament funds. This is a tweet that she put out. Beyond the person of Sarkozy, she says, there is what's called a double degree of jurisdiction, and she denounces the blanket use of provisional sentencing by some jurisdictions, and she says it undermines the presumption of innocence.
Do you know why we have provisional sentencing? Do you know why we have that in France? That was a request of our political party, the Rassemblement National.
Because we saw what you mean, like the people who will go to jail immediately.
Yes, that's what
after the riots.
Our party did get that into a vote in the parliament. That's why we have that now in the legislation. She's fighting against herself. I mean, it's Kramer against Kramer.
Yeah, and that's what's going on every day in justice. Nothing is different with a French president, and that's what the surprise. It's the justice is the same.
But
for normal person.
We have lived to see Marine Le Pen supporting Nicolas Sarkozy. I mean, they fought against each other really big in their times, and now they are supporting each other. It's kind of twist.
All right, I want to pick up again what you said about what is it about the French and corruption? They are.
Yeah, we are as a society. It's been studied. We are tolerant. We can
tolerant.
Vote for,
you're saying.
More tolerant.
Resigned to it, perhaps, but tolerant.
No, we don't care that much. I mean, we have a lot of mayors. For instance, I won't drop names, but if you think of Patrick Balkany in the
Paris suburb of Levallois.
Yeah, exactly. He's been condemned many times.
We're not north of Europe for that.
And his voters will tell you he's a nice guy.
Okay.
He's a nice guy.
Roll back the clock. December 2007. Nicolas Sarkozy has been president for 7 months when he hosts a state visit for Muammar Gaddafi, who sets up his tent across from the Élysée Palace at the French state's Hôtel Marignan. That's the residence when you have foreign dignitaries for a state visit. And at the time, it was awkward, Guillaume Denoy de Saint-Marc, in the country that, what is it, tolerates corruption or?
Yeah, we tolerate corruption. Maybe not dictators, but corruption, yes.
But there was unease in the French capital at the time.
It was crazy. I knew that this visit would happen when I signed with the Libyans in 2004. I knew that something would happen and that Gaddafi would come to France. But I was hoping that it would be something very discreet, short. I asked to be received by the French president during the visit of Gaddafi, just to show that he have attention also to the victims of a terrorist attack organized by Gaddafi. Of course, it had been refused, but I said, I understand why you refuse it, but I will keep on asking for it. And I asked for it on the Saturday.
Did you think at the time Sarkozy must be on the take?
No. I had some suspicions because I was also in the case for the nurses.
The Bulgarian nurses,
where
Sarkozy's then wife acted as one of the intermediaries.
I was working with the lawyers to defend them, and I knew that they had to be released many months before. But suddenly everything stopped due to Mr. Sarkozy, who wanted to be the man who would put them out of jail. So I knew that something was tricky. But anyway, I didn't think about that at that moment, but I asked to be received. What is very strange is that on the Wednesday, Gaddafi was still in his tent, and I was received with other victims of the DC-10 in the Élysée Palace, and that was the first time that the victims of the DC-10 were received by the French president, by a French president.
So you got what you wanted?
No, I knew that something had turned on the Tuesday. I received a phone call on Tuesday evening. Do you still want to come to the Élysée Palace? So I think that there is a turning point on the Tuesday where suddenly Sarkozy understood that
he'd gone too far.
Gone too far, and that something was
protocol
too much.
and
Did he
the
need
red
to
card.
offer you something? What happened in that meeting?
He was just wanted to say that he was paying attention to us, and that he had to receive Gaddafi due to all the money, all the contracts, and all that. But of course, he didn't forget what was going on. So he was just, trying to balance his position. And it was very strange to see it at that time. And now that I see it from after the trial, I understand that he was completely turned out. Him and his team were obnubilated by the contracts and the money. And suddenly he saw that Gaddafi came in Paris just to laugh at him because he didn't sign the contracts. And I remember the interview where he was telling that he spoke about human rights with Gaddafi, and Gaddafi was interviewed and said, "No, we never spoke about that," in the same interview. So it was a vengeance of Gaddafi to come to Paris and humiliate Sarkozy, and that's when afterwards the relation came bad.
Anas El Gamadi, your memories of that state visit and your reaction to Guillaume Denoy de Saint-Marc's account.
I remember I used to live in Paris at the time. I got off the metro in the Champs-Élysées. I was walking down and I started seeing Libyan goons, intelligence goons, that were walking around near the Cartier shop. I was a young student at the time, and I thought to myself, I was supposed to be safe here in Europe. I'm supposed to be safe in Paris, supposed to be safe in London. I don't feel safe anymore seeing people that have pulled out fingernails and broken people's hands and tied up their genitalia to batteries. These are the kind of people that were walking around. Your other guest did say that we tolerate corruption here in France, but we don't really tolerate dictators. That's backwards. We don't just tolerate dictators. We enable them with our corruption in Europe. And if you look at the evidence of that today, we still see that the Élysée is still hosting people like Khalifa Haftar, a Libyan wannabe dictator that doesn't actually hold a post in the official internationally recognized government, but is hosted in the Élysée. These are individuals that take money, that take weapons from Russian dictators like Putin, whilst also being hosted in Europe, whether it be in France or in Italy with Meloni. These are individuals that are supposed to be tried by the ICC, and those cases are never opened. So I think we have it backwards. I don't think we've actually learned much, but my memories then are the same as what I know today. It's not really about those that are doing it then. It's about the enduring legacy. Those that have done these things, that have enabled that kind of corruption, that do it in those ways, and exactly as your guest was saying, it's about the money. The criminal architecture that they use is designed to get outside of the illegal architecture that we have. The illegal architecture that we have it's not impervious to this kind of corruption. It's pervious to it. It allows for it. Plausible deniability. These operations are like spy networks. They have middlemen. They have cutouts. They have guys that will funnel cash. So what if Sarkozy didn't leave Libya with 50 million or 5 million in cash? So what if it was jury, a Franco-Algerian that took the money for him? He gets 6 years and goes into cuffs today, and Sarkozy gets to talk about playing the victim. The money was for him. I mean, it's in my mind. I still don't understand how we've gotten this idea that, that justice was served. Justice wasn't even served. It was delayed. And I still don't feel like we're going to get the maximum amount here because the system continues. You have to break that wheel, the wheel that is still rolling as we see it today. We have dictators that are walking all over Europe that are signing deals for Rafales and signing deals for Eurofighters that are going to Washington to buy F-35s. You have an ongoing genocide in the region when no one can even call it a genocide anymore. That's not just corruption of a legal system, it's moral corruption if we don't name it what it is. And I think that's the problem. I don't think that Europe has learned from its mistakes in the past. It doesn't see it as a mistake, it sees it as someone that got caught doing it in the act. Because we all knew this in Libya in 2011 and 2012. We knew what was happening. Many of us can sniff it in 2007. Many of us knew why he brought the tent there. He brought it to mock the presidency. He brought it to mock them. And because at the time, that would have been a funny thing to do. Today, it's relevant. The geopolitics of the world today, where you see Gaddafi's speeches on Facebook and you see people still playing his speeches today in Libya or in African continents. Why? I mean, besides it being Russian disinformation for the most part, it's relevant. It taps into something because people realize the system says one thing in Europe, but then it does something else. And unless we learn from those lessons and we try to break that wheel and we work with it today, with breaking the wheel today, not hosting dictators when they're convenient and saying, I don't know how we let this happen 20 years later. You have to stop it today and draw a moral line.
And it also adds another layer to history. You both Claire and here and Guillaume were saying that they felt like they had witnessed perhaps a moment in history with this verdict that came out this Thursday. September 2011, after the fall of Gaddafi, Nicolas Sarkozy, then UK Prime Minister David Cameron, they travel to Benghazi for a victory lap and a triumphant welcome at the time. Sarkozy taking on Gaulian airs when he talked about a liberated Benghazi in that trip. How will history remember that now? Philippe Moreau-Chevrolet, will the French think that Sarkozy was trying to stop Gaddafi from perpetrating a bloodbath in Libya's second city, or that he was shooting at the man he owes money to?
If they consider the case, I don't know if they are too. I don't know if they are too knowledgeable about this whole Libyan affair. They are knowledgeable about the president going to jail, about the president having a lot of problem with the justice. He had problems for a long period of time now, repeatedly. I don't think they are too knowledgeable about this current situation in Libya. That's a very complicated topic, and that was not well explained to the French public, by the way. Not really. We barely know about what happened to your father. Mm. It's not something that has been explained enough, I think, advocated for enough, not by the politicians themselves. I think they will see that he's going to jail, and maybe they will start to get interested in what happens in Libya and what happened for him in Libya, and they will judge him harshly, of course. I don't know if they will hold him accountable for what happened to the Libyan dictator at the time. I'm not too sure that they would go that far. They will see that there was something shady. But politicians are corrupt. For many French people, that's the wisdom of the day. They believe that politicians, on average, tend not to be too honest. We are very lenient to that collectively again. And linking that to what happened in Libya, some people will do it because they would get interested in that, but not many people, unfortunately.
political outrage? Do you think there'll be outrage, Claire Pacanin?
I think not. I think probably not. And I agree with you on your point, Philippe. I also think what's interesting is that Sarkozy, as I was listening to him speaking to this crowd of journalists just as he stepped out of the courtroom, playing the victim, saying that hatred had no boundaries. And he has said for a long time, Sarkozy, he has been very up against France's justice system. He thinks that there are professional magistrates who have something in for him, that they want to take revenge. I don't think that the French public in general will necessarily really go with that. I don't think we're in a country where French people think that the justice system is somehow political and has got something in, particularly for Nicolas Sarkozy. And I think it's also worth remembering that the way the justice system works is that magistrates, judges, prosecutors, they handle complaints. And this came from Mediapart originally. It wasn't a whole lot of French judges who thought, I think we're going to start looking into Nicolas Sarkozy just because. No.
It's because of this media outlet.
It's because of this media outlet. They had to deal with the complaint. They spent 10 years investigating it, 3 months of a trial. When you look at the judgment, it's 400 pages long. The reading took more than 3 hours. The judge knew that she was going to convict a former French president and she was going to give him a sentence of 5 years in jail, and other French ministers, with 13 defendants altogether. She was going to need something concrete, and she spent a long time, and we were in court today listening to how she was justifying it. So Sarkozy playing the victim, it will work with some in his camp. Not sure it will work with the French public in general.
Absolutely wanted it to be unattackable.
Yeah.
Something that would be...
Guillaume Denoy de Saint-Marc.
And it's the first time that in a corruption trial, there are real victims like me, like the other persons, because usually it's just about money. But in that case, there was also this discussion about releasing a terrorist. And this changed the way, of course, to see the trial. And even for the public, it's something a bit different. It's not only about money. It's also about a president who wanted to release the sentence on a terrorist. And this changed the point of view, I think. And for me, it's even worse than money. I'm a bit like you. Corruption, it's part of the game, I would say. I don't like it, but what they did about Senussi is unbelievable.
It's one thing to say to the people that you need realpolitik. That's what they say usually. We deal with dictators because we need the economy to be going. And you can't blacklist countries based on their political regime. That's up to the local population to do something about it, which is also true. And that's another thing to be facing. Yeah, it's another thing to be facing the human consequences of what dealing with dictators actually mean. When Donald Trump supports
and there were jail sentences
Russia,
for both Claude Guéant and Brice Hortefeux, who dealt with Abdullah.
Yeah, but that's something else, because there were people dead because of that. It's not.
I think the defense would have been that for political reason, for I'm looking for dealing with a country with a dictatorship, that we have to go in a gray zone, and they had to pretend that maybe they would do something, then maybe they would have been sentenced. But that was not the line of the defense. They were denying what happened completely.
That's usually what they do, and that's their greatest weakness.
Yeah,
they always.
But we could have understood.
They don't want to face accountability.
If they went on the real politics. You understand what I mean? That thing, we had to do something because we wanted Libya to come out from a terrorist position, to come back.
But this wasn't a reason of state. This was a campaign to get elected, which is quite different.
Yeah.
Guillaume Denoy de Saint-Marc, I want to thank you. I want to thank as well Claire Pacanin, Philippe Moreau-Chevrolet, Anas El Khamadi for being with us from Istanbul. Thank you for being with us here in the France 24 debate.